Okay, amazing. So yeah, we'll just wait another minute or so. Okay, no problem, Robin. We'll try to cover the important stuff in the beginning. So you have at least some things to work through, but then I'll send you the recording afterwards. So yay. I know at least one other person that should be joining, so I'm going to wait for them. Hopefully, now that I think about it, Tracy, hopefully the people who did register didn't then, when I opened up registration with the link, hopefully they weren't the ones that like lost a link. No, that's good. Okay. Okay, great. Emma's here. Nice. We're just going to wait one more minute because we want to make sure that if people felt like they needed to register, that they have a second to do that. Some people had the direct link and some people had the registration link. So we just want to give one more minute for people to join who maybe had to register at the last minute. Last second, but we're so excited that you're here. And Tracy and I have been planning this. So this is very exciting. All right, well, what do you think?
Well, let's go for it. We can just start saying hi and letting them know what's going on. Hi, everybody.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I'll just kind of remind you all what this class is about and what we're hoping that you're going to get from it. And then we'll talk a little bit about who we are and what we do as coaches. What's really fun about Tracy and I is that we met in our coach certification program, and we've been coaching each other and trying to find ways to collaborate ever since. So this is one of our first collaboration opportunities, which is really exciting and fun. But basically what this class is, it's called Find Your Magic. And Tracy will talk more about what that means specifically, but we're here to really help you find ways to connect with your feelings and knowingness. So that's one thing we're going to help you really recognize and understand and use as a tool as you're going forward. We're going to find out where you're holding things. Here goes my voice. I'm going to start losing my voice. Where you're holding things in your body and what those pains and sensations and things have to tell you. So what are the messages that those things are telling you? So understanding more about that, a clearer vision of what your unique and special gifts and talents are, because sometimes we go forward doing the things that we think we should be doing, and then we push down the things that we're really good at or all those special skills. So we're going to talk about really bringing that forward again, and then giving yourself permission. So once you know how to tap into these new messages and understand what's happening in your body, giving yourself permission to believe that those things can help you move forward in your business, in your job, in your career. And so, so just trusting that your magic is powerful and worth spending time developing. So that's what you're gonna get out of this class. That's the plan. So Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I do.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Tracy Feldstein, and I have been a wellness engineer working with people's bodies and hands-on work, fascial work, energy work, and also combining that with, I call it wellness engineering. So it's a coaching, but it's about the same thing, that there's layers to your body, physically and emotionally. So there's energy held in your body, there's emotions held in your body, and physically your body will get stuck around those things. Like there's posturing and holdings. And so what I do with people is kind of work around those things. So we can talk about where your pain is, where you're holding yourself, and then uncover the feelings, uncover the stories, unwind them, and let your body heal as it is ready to, and move on to the next stories and uncover the things that feel good and the things that feel bad, so that you have a conversation with your body and a trusting of yourself and your knowingness. And to me, everyone's body has a rhythm that for their healing, and it's unique to each person, and there's a timing to it that's all your own. And it's really learning to just be present and connected to it, and you can heal anything, in my experience. So that's what I do.
Amazing. And my background is in more business consulting. So I've been a business consultant helping startups grow and working with business owners also to understand the roadblocks that are in their way. And so before I got coach certified, I did that in a way that was more about operations and really looking at the business and helping grow the business from the inside. And through coach certification and also through working with Tracy, I've been able to sort of apply different tools to my business consulting that are more about what are the blocks that come up when you're thinking about moving your business forward that aren't related to operational logistics, but are just about you and having fears and things that are standing in your way. And so that's why we thought this would be kind of a perfect combination of Tracy's skills and my skills, because once you kind of look at where you're holding things in your body and bring it forward and recognize it as a special gift, then it's like, well, what do you do with it after that? So a lot of coaches and we were talking about this earlier, a lot of people in the self-help industry are really good at starting the conversation and talking about philosophy and the reasons why you should change the way you're thinking. But what they don't do is really help you create a plan to implement that. So it's not enough to just see it and recognize that you have this special gift. It's like, well, what do you do now? Because that's when the real questions start to pop up and the real fears really start to come forward, like, oh, great, now I have to get over this fear hurdle. And so that's what I work with people on now.
Yeah. And also we were kind of talking about how there are so many ideas of like, just changing your mindset, just change your mindset, just change your mindset, and it's like, if you don't actually have that ability to go inside and have a conversation with your body and let those stories and feelings come up, then you don't have the tools to actually walk in your life with those new mindsets, because you have all these other things stuck in these old beliefs and these old stories, and you don't even realize they're there. And so you're like, well, I'm practicing this new mindset. Why isn't it working? I read this guy's book, I'm listening to the podcast, and what, and now I feel like a failure because I don't know why there's a disconnect. And what we have found is there's such a big missing piece in being able to have that conversation and to unwind those old stories and those old posturings and those old real postures, like you hold yourself in your belief. And so to change your belief, you have to change your posturing. And that comes from listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about magic and what that means in this context?
Yeah, I think what magic means to me in your work, or even in my work, it's like the place where I feel I'm getting back as much as I'm giving. And it feels like time flies, and it feels like, no, I don't need to get paid for this, even though you get paid handsomely for it, because that's how you feel, right? And so it truly just feels like it's your gift. It's my special thing that I bring to whatever this work is. And there may be 10 other people that do it, or 100 other people that do it, but this is what I do with it that makes me special. And that's my magic. And so uncovering that, is a little bit of a journey, but you know that feeling within your body when it just feels fun and it feels good. And so that's kind of what we wanted to create, or what I wanted to create for you too, is like that experience of magic in your body, like knowing the part of your work that you love to do. And if you can think about that, like take a second and think of the thing, even one little part of it that you're like, oh, I just love when it's that part of the week and I get to do this, and that's the one that feels good. And if you can grab that thought and take yourself to that moment, and that experience in your work. And just kind of, if you want to close your eyes, you want to just sit with it, feel in your body what it feels like when you are in that really juicy, I call it, like place where it's magical, where it feels like, oh, I just love to do this. I could do this all day long. And it feeds me to do this. And so just noticing where in your body, what that feels like. And even when I say it, because I'm looking at Jaime, it's like when I say that to you, what do you notice in your body?
So one of my favorite times of the day and part of my work is when I get off a call with someone and I feel like there was some kind of breakthrough in the call with my clients. And there's just this, I'm like, I can't stop smiling because it's just this feeling of like really, like it fills me up. Like there's a joy and it feels like open and light. And, when I'm stressed, there's a lot of constriction. And so when I feel that joy and happiness after one of those calls, I just really feel like open. It's bigger, more expansive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you guys are having any trouble, like the questions I like to ask is like, well, where in your body are you noticing this? Like, is there an area that's grabbing your attention? Is it your chest? Is it your head? Is it your throat? Is it your heart? Is it your belly? Like just to kind of see if you can see where the sensations are, or if an area of your body is grabbing you. And then just like Jaime did, she started to describe like the sensations there, right? Like using adjectives, describing it to someone so they would know what it felt like in there. And so for her, felt open, right? It felt light. So maybe there's a color, maybe there's a sound, maybe there's a song, maybe there's a weight to it, maybe there's movement, maybe it feels bubbly, maybe it feels tight, like you were saying, just anything, just growing that creativity. And sometimes it's harder at the beginning because you don't have this connection. So really, the more questions and the more that you can use adjectives to really get in there and just notice what it feels like and just hang out with it and just notice what it feels like when you notice it, right? And see if it moves or if it changes or if it evolves or if it goes to a different area, or just kind of hanging out with it and seeing what it feels like and what it feels like when you're really present to it. If you have any questions, just holler. I don't know if we have the chat on. Okay. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat and we'll just pay attention to that. But also, so now we have that feeling of magic, right? And so if you're having trouble with that feeling of magic, or even if you aren't, there's that moment of also, okay, so now think about a regular work day and notice what you notice in your body. Does it feel the same? Does it shift? What are the stories inside of your body about your average work day? And if it doesn't feel the same as that moment that's magical, just notice where it grabs you, what it's like, what the experience is. And when you hang out with it, spend some time and see if there's a story attached to it. See if something comes up. see if it has a belief in there that is yours about this regular work day and this feeling in my body, and how are they connected? And what's the story I tell of this that creates this within my body? And it's just to learn. It's just to get comfortable with this conversation with yourself and start to listen to what's going on inside. Okay, I just are we talking about flow when you talk about magic, Gemma? I mean, I think flow is I mean, I guess that it's an interesting question for sure. And flow for me is like an energy. And if things are flowing, to me, for sure, that would be about magic. But so when things are flowing, it would feel more to me like you're in your magic. And when things aren't flowing, where is it stopping? Where is it getting stuck? What does it feel like when it's not flowing? Where does it not flow? And hanging out with that and seeing if there's a story attached to that once you're really in it. Does that help? You let me know, Gemma. So, yes. Okay, good. Okay. So a lot of these things, are so deep, and as these stories come up, right, they unravel and they start to teach us about ourselves, and they start to maybe have reoccurring stories, and that's all fun to play with at another time too, is see like, oh, okay, where else is that story coming up, and how else can I unwind it, and what unwinds it. But I also find at the beginning, what's fun about these two juxtapositions is they help to unwind each other. So if you have that feeling of, oh, this is what it feels like when I'm in my magic, and I can go there and practice going there in my mind and in my body and seeing what it feels like, then you get more used to when I'm not in my magic, I start to be more present to, oh, in my day, oh, okay, I'm not in that same feeling. So where am I? And what is that telling me about what's going on right now? And maybe I'm just anxious, or maybe it's new, or maybe I'm excited, or, maybe I'm scared, but at least I'm going to have a different conversation instead of just shutting down around it. And that can guide you to other stuff. So you can play with going back to the resource of magic and staying present to what's going on. And you can always jump out of something that feels like maybe too intense and jump back to your magic and use it as a resource anytime while you're at work to just kind of help yourself settle down and unravel, and to step back a little bit so you can see what's going on. And that's a lot of words. I hope that makes sense. Holler if anything, but anything else? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we talk about sometimes too is like when you're in the middle of having to make a decision, we sometimes just go straight to our brain, like pros and cons. What are the good things and the bad things? And what I've done, but I didn't have the words for it. I didn't realize I was doing it until I met you, Tracy. It was like, I do tend to look in my body, like, is it triggering something in my body when I think about making the decision and doing it this way or that way? And for me, it shows up a lot in my stomach, where if I really start to have like cramps in my stomach, or my stomach starts to get tight, I know that my body is like, this feels off. And that's kind of like the gut feeling. Like my gut is telling me there's something off here, like my instincts, my intuition. There's something there that's like, ugh. And sometimes I have to make a decision that doesn't seem logical. And there's no reason why I should say yes to this decision. Like all rhyme and reason, like is in the direction of you should definitely say no to this decision. But when I scan my body, I'm like, my body is not triggering anything. I'm kind of going to go for it, even though it feels really weird and scary and like something I shouldn't do. And for me, that's always been a tool, but I didn't realize it was a tool. But I always kind of like look like, is there a signal? And I think that's an interesting thing to recognize, that we all have some way of noticing that it's there, but it's whether or not we listen. is a big part of that.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add to that too, there's that other level of um, where am I making the decision from and what does that feel like? And so sometimes I'll stop myself when I feel really anxious about something and I'll feel it in my body and I'm like, why am I anxious? What is my head telling me? And then I need to answer from that, right? In my head, like I'm just having this, I'm building an office for myself. And my head is like, this is the dumbest thing you've ever decided to do. Here's 400 reasons why that is not practical to do right now. And I'm so anxious about it. And then I step further back and I'm like, okay, now go to my heart and go to my body and imagine yourself in this new space. And like everything drops and it feels perfect. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay. So these are my choices. Do I want to follow my head, which is going to tell me always why it's bad, why it's scary, because that's what your brain does? Or can I, so then I have to listen to both. And then I go back into my body. Does my body say this is a terrible thing? Am I anxious about it? Not at all. Okay. So quiet my mind and trust my gut and move forward. So it's kind of fun to be able to play also, like, where is this coming from? Is it coming from my body or is it coming from my mind?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because we're just so used to being in our heads about everything. And so we don't trust it, even if our body is like, oh, it's looking good, or oh no, don't go forward. It feels wrong. Sometimes we just ignore it because our head makes up a story about it. And we just think, well, that's the trusted source. And
Right.
I just
Which
think it's
is
really
it
interesting.
never
Yeah.
is.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
and you can't totally ignore your logical brain either. I mean, this isn't an exercise in don't ever think about what the consequences will be, just only follow your heart. But there is a balance right now that I think in general is pretty far off, that it's mostly swayed to people just following their logical brain. And then they turn off, what the signals are, and then pain happens. And I think that's where you work with people most, is like recognizing that if you keep going down this path, that pain is not going to go away no matter how much I work with you and how much body work I do. It's never going to release because you just keep doing this thing over here, making decisions from a place that's not connected to your body.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, as we have talked, it's for me the part where it starts to get um really important to discuss this and to listen and gather the energy and the stories and all the communication with your body is the more you don't do that and the more you stunt that and the more you get stuck in your body and these stories get stuck, it turns into disease and it turns into true pain and limitations. And I always say, like, how loud does it have to get your attention? And so instead of needing it to get loud and needing to hurt yourself or get hit by a bus, or if clients do it all the way through from little sicknesses they can handle to cancers and things they can't, and so it depends how long you stop yourself from listening and appreciating what's happening in your body and speaking from your truth and getting to make choices in your brain around your truth. And so I agree, it's not about not using your brain, but it's also about gathering information and then making choices. So I always say there's the big brain, the human exciting brain, and then and the knowingness. A lot of my clients always ask me, like, why do we do this other thing? And like, well, your brain is there to save you, right? And protect you. Your reptilian, your normal survival brain is always looking for the things that are scary on purpose to make sure you're okay. And the problem is most people stay there. And so they're just letting that be. And so there's an acknowledgement of, okay, I get it. Thanks for the information, but what do I want to do around it? What are the choices I want to make around it? And that's what's so cool about being human, is that we get to use that bigger part of our brain and we get to listen and have the conversations and then make choices.
Yeah. So I'm curious from, our people here, I would love all of you to just add something in the Q&A. No pressure if you don't want to, but I would be interested to know, like, when Tracy walked through that exercise in the beginning, when you think about a great moment in your workday, the thing that really like fires you up, where you get that spark, where does it show up for you all? Where does it show up in your body? Where do you feel it? And have you ever noticed it before? Have you ever paid attention to that feeling before? I'm really curious about that. And I think one thing too, to address Hema's question again about this flow, you know, the work that Tracy does also is kind of like creating flow, right? Like you have constriction in your body somewhere, and it's also like helping create that flow, that energetic flow. And magic to me is also like a nugget. Like I feel like we all see each other's magic more than we see our own. And so it's kind of like when you have a friend and they have this little sparkle and you can see it and you're always like, oh, but that thing you have, you're so good at doing XYZ. Like I see this little sparkle and they're like, what do you mean? I'm awful at that. Or I hate that. Or I hate pictures of myself. Or I hate this or I hate that. And you're like, but I see this little sparkle. Like, you want your friend to see it, right? So you encourage it. You keep telling them like, no, but that's your special thing. Like that's what makes you special. That's what I love about you. That's your thing. And so for me, it's also like there's a flow, and that's when you've found that little nugget, that little sparkle, and you've given yourself permission to like use that as your fuel, like, I don't know, your special crystal. Like, but then the flow comes, like Tracy said, like the flow comes from recognizing it and giving yourself permission to tap into that sparkle and like believe that it's worthy. And then you get into that space where you have flow because you're like, yeah, that's my thing. Okay, cool. I believe in that now. And I think that's what is really fun about the work that we do too, is that we get to like turn up that sparkle. Like my daughter has one of those like Little Miss books, and it's Little Miss Sparkle. And she just walks around and puts sparkle on everyone.
I love it.
I
Oh,
love
they
that.
all answered. It's so good. Have you seen in
Yay.
the Q&A? Yeah.
Yeah. So heart. Yes. Chest and throat.
Also a bit on my skin overall.
Mhm.
So good.
And so it feels energizing in my core, a lightness and a warmth. So what does this say to you, Tracy, like knowing where it's showing up for people?
Yeah. I mean, so good. I mean, heart, right? It's like it's your source, right? And so to keep tapping into that, right? When you feel it in your heart, then you know you're doing the right thing. You're in your magic, right? And so that's such a great resource. And shows up in the chest and throat and on the skin overall. So it's also about diving into that. So I would say, what does it feel like there? What are the sensations in your chest and your throat? What does it feel like on your skin? So you can really experience it, right? Same with Emma in the heart. Like, what does it feel like? What are you observing there? But also knowing that those are the things that are connected um, to that magical feeling. And when you know that that's you're in that space, right? And so noticing when you're not, and what does that mean? And what do you notice when you're not there? Right. And then you can always take yourself back to these places. It looks like Robin had to go, but I love that she's like, I've never actually stopped to think about this or observe it. But when I reflect on it, it feels energizing in my core. So again, what a great thing to know, right? That it actually does resource you. Maybe you guys are starting to experience what it actually feels like in those places. So maybe you need to like just go there, right? Go into those magical moments that feel really good, and you feel them in your heart, you feel it in the chest and throat, and just experience what it feels like. But like you were saying, it will open up flow just giving it that attention. And, just like I've never thought about it before, but I feel the lightness and the warmth and it feels energizing. Okay, that's what's sourcing you, right? That's why it feels good, because it actually feels good, right? Yeah. And so knowing like that's true in your own being, you're actually getting sourced. So cool.
Yeah. I love that idea of like giving attention to it, because I think that's the other piece of us putting, having a story all the time, having our filter on to be able to interpret everything that's happening to us rather than feeling it. We're always trying to translate it through our thoughts and ideas. And then there's a tendency for a lot of people to just spin out evidence to back up or defend the negative stories that they spin, and those negative stories never feel good in your body, but some people just stay there and they stay in that storyline. So when you recognize for the first time that there's this like fuel inside of you and this little spark and fire, like it feels really good. So don't be in a rush to find reasons why you shouldn't be allowed to feel that, you know?
Yeah. And even the experience of looking for that more in your day, right? And so like, some of my clients, we do like a win journal, like end of day, like connecting to the wins, the goods, like the part that is magic. Like how many times did I find that magic place today? And where were they? Right? What was it that I was doing? What made me feel that way? Right? And so therefore we're making our brains look for the evidence of the magic. And we're spending our day looking for that. And we're aware of the other things because we'll feel the difference, but we're not giving that attention. And normally our brains, as we said before, go there and just naturally. So to give it something to do and say, hey, let's look for the magic. Let's look for that place. And where else can we find it during the day so we can keep resourcing ourselves and fueling and living from that place and working from that place. Kind of
Yeah.
amazing to see what it does.
And it's amazing that nothing has to change in your life or your world. Like you don't have to move, you don't have to change jobs. You might start to be aware of like more toxicity and make decisions from a different place once you're tuned into that. But ultimately, that fuel and that spark and that magic isn't coming from what happens when XYZ changes in your life. It's that it's always there if you pay attention to it and you get centered with it and you allow yourself to think that way or feel that way. You don't have to wait for something to change to allow yourself to feel it, which I think is just amazing when you get a chance to really tap into that fuel.
Mm, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think you'll just start to make decisions. And that's what I find, the more that you have these conversations and you feel that way, and then you notice when you don't, and then you notice when you do, and you're looking for when you do, then you start to make choices that will lead you to feeling that. Right. And so I'm looking for this. So where else can I bring that? And so, well, that's a no then, because that brings me the other feeling. Right. And then it just sort of slips in because you're just sort of shifting your energy towards the things that feel really good and that feel your magic. And so it starts to just give you that information, and without needing to go, these are the things I don't like. It's like you just sort of drop them slowly because they're not giving you that,
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Does that
So
make sense?
yeah. Does anyone have any questions about how to tap into that? I mean, it seems like you all have now a sense of what that feels like, and know how to recognize it, which is great. But if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. Should we talk about now kind of bringing some of that forward?
I mean, yes. So to me, when you were talking about working with me, now is my chance to talk about working with Jaime. Is once you uncover all that, to me, Jaime's magic is seeing your magic and what makes you special in your job, and really supporting you in the person you are, and the magic worker that you are, and all the magic that you have, and also saying like, yeah, no, that doesn't fit in your magic. This fits in your magic. And I always say it's like looking at a crystal ball with her, like looking at yourself, and she's like, no, see? And I'm like, oh, okay, I never saw it that way. And so like with that information, supporting you, and keeping you in that magic, and then like helping you just like grow wings and fly, and what are you going to do with it? And so take it. But that it's so powerful and amazing what you do.
Well, it's so fun. And it's fun when you start kind of following what you think your magic is and you start tapping into it. It's like, oh, all of a sudden you realize you have these skills that you didn't know you had before. And that's what's really amazing about getting into that feeling, getting centered with that feeling and knowing what it feels like, and then starting to do things that align with it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I have this other special gift and I have this special gift. And sometimes it takes other people, like friends or people around you, to say like, this is your sparkle. And I think for me, I've been in management for a long time. And I think I just naturally would work with my teams and say, oh, wait, I worked in advertising agencies for a long time. So I'd see someone, I'd say, why, I don't understand why you're a project manager. Like, you're an incredible like filmmaker, editor. I don't understand why you're not doing that for the agency. Like, you could be making money and doing this thing that you do as a hobby. And they're like, is that an option? I'm like, of course it's an option. Like, yeah, let's do it. And so I think like for me, I just love watching when people see that someone else sees that sparkle and they're like, oh, wait, I kind of knew it was in there, but no one let me see it, or like I didn't let myself see it, or I didn't think it was special. And someone else is like, it's not that you always need someone else to show you, but I just think it's so much fun and like brings so much positivity to the world instead of us all like trolling each other and being really negative. I just think it's so fun to say like, wait, you have this thing. Why are you hiding it? And I think that's where the body stuff comes in too, because we think we're supposed to be on a certain path. Like, we're supposed to make money, we're supposed to do these things, we're supposed to fit into this, ladder. We see other people doing these things. We see people in corporate jobs who have more money, more success, and all these things. And then we just push down our sparkle. We like push down our magic, we push down our gifts, we push down our talents, and we think we need to fit into a box. And it's so fun when it's like, wait, no, you don't. Oh, really? Like, what happens next? So I think that's the big piece to all this, is that you're gonna start to feel a pull to go start doing something else potentially, or adding something into your work that feels more aligned, that feels more comfortable, that feels more, juicy. And then as soon as you start doing it, all the self-doubt and all the fear and the shame and the confusion and overwhelm and all that stuff will just start to drown you. And so Tracy's example is perfect, because all that stuff will come in, but your body will still be like fired up. And your body will still be telling you like, no, this is good. This is good. Like, it's fuel. Like, you feel it in your chest and throat, and you feel it on your skin, and you feel light, and you feel warmth. You're still going to feel all that. And your brain is just going to, keep telling you like, no, it's wrong. No, it's wrong. No, it's wrong. And what I love about entrepreneurship in particular is that it gives you a chance to see all those things. So you tap into your magic, you start following it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, fear, oh, self-doubt, oh, insecurity. But that's not the same as pain in your body. Those are just the things that start to manifest when you start to step outside of this box that you and society and your family and everybody's put you in. As soon as you take one step out of that box, you're like, what's out here? I'm so scared. But so what I want to help you understand, even just through this small session here, is that you need to be aware of the fact that all those things will start to come up, but you can still walk in parallel with the fear. You can still move your career or your business forward, even if that fear is like creeping alongside you for a while. Like, you don't have to get rid of those feelings. And Tracy is so good at reminding me that they're going to come up. And what's great is that they're just feelings. They're not bears in the woods. It's the fear of the bear, but the bear isn't actually there. So you just need to keep going forward and then recognizing when that fear comes up and then just not following it. So it's going to come up and it's going to try to freak you out. So when you feel in your body, I'm trying to like figure out a way to do this right now, but when you feel that warmth and that lightness and you feel it in your heart and you feel it in your chest, what is the voice telling you that you need to do to foster that feeling in your body? Because we all know there's a thing out there that we want to do, and it might be really different from what we've done before. And it might be something that disappoints people in our life. And it might be something that feels like it's super risky and too scary to even imagine, but we kind of know that it's there. So hold on to that. Like, what is that special thing that's been in there, but it's been hiding? And so as soon as you find it, what is like a physical way that you can manifest that now without having to? So like, let's say you want to build a business and you want to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to get overwhelmed by all what that means and like all the things that means. But what's one physical manifestation of that feeling you have in your body? What's one way to bring that special talent forward? And you might know the answer, you might not. It might be hard to find. So it's like Tracy was saying too, if this is a new skill to understand what's happening in your body and being aware of it, just slow down and just keep listening. Just keep listening to what is the story behind this feeling. What is it trying to tell me to do? Is it trying to tell me to make a change, that that's going to feel better, that that's going to feel more open? Is it telling me that I should stop doing this thing that I've been doing for a while? What's that message? And then try to bring it forward in a way, in a physical way. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're an artist, but you haven't painted in a really long time. So with all the ease in the world, without feeling strain, without feeling stress, without feeling pressure to do something or make it into a career, anything, like, just what's the first thing you could do to tap back into that special gift? It could be like we were talking the other day about, like, if you're trying to tap back into your creativity and you don't really have an outlet, like, you could make a collage. It doesn't have to be something that like you're going to share with the world. It can just be something, it's just a physical manifestation of this sensation in your body mixed with this special gift and skill and talent that you've really like pushed down for a long time. It could be as simple as, I really like to talk and like philosophize and unpack things and try to solve problems. And so maybe the manifestation of that is like calling a friend and talking to them about a situation that they're in. Just one small way to tap back into that feeling. Because when you get off the phone with that friend, you might have that feeling again in your heart, in your chest, in all those places where you love that feeling. It's just like trying to figure out what's the way I can trigger that without just like sitting and feeling, but what's a physical way that I can like create something that's going to put me back in that place? What's something that I can put into the world? Now, here's why we do that. Because it does feel good to just sit with it and meditate on it and get in that feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is going to happen when you pull it out and you put it out into the world is all that insecurity and all that fear is going to come up. It's going to start telling you like, oh, but that collage, why'd you choose that magazine? Like, even if you're not showing it to anyone, like I like to write and I always have this writing critic in my mind that like, oh, really? You're going to say it like that? Oh, is that right grammar? You shouldn't put that out in the world if you don't know that it's 100% perfect grammar. So that critic will always show up as soon as you take it out of your body and you put it into the world, and you want to trigger that critic because you want to be able to tell that critic to be quiet. You need to recognize that like that critic is not truth. That critic is not telling you any facts, but it won't come up if you're just sitting in your comfort zone and sitting in your quiet bubble in your meditation. That critic will never come forward and try to get in your way, and you'll never have a chance to try to push it out of your way, which is what makes you get to the next level in your special gifts and bringing your special gifts to the world. You have to take it out of your body so that you get to work through those emotions that are going to come up. And they always will. And I've been talking a lot. So what do you have to add to that, Tracy?
No, it's great. I was thinking too that it's like a practice of, because you were saying all the things that bring you that same place and that same magic. Like I do a lot with my clients, like make a resource list, like make a whole list of things that make you feel that way, and like check, go through each one and say, okay, when I call my best friend, does it feel that same way as that magic gift, or, anything, and make a whole list of them. And then when to tap back into it, just choose something every day, to get you to that space so that you can keep feeling it in the same way. The more you feel it, the more you trust it, the more you start to source it, and then bringing it out into the world. Although all those other feelings are going to come up, you're going to realize they're feelings, right? And it's like, so what are you going to do with those feelings? Because you also have this like really well-resourced feeling of like, no, this is my jam. This is when I feel good, and so I'm going to bring it out. And at that point, you kind of have all those voices, but you also have this knowingness of like, okay, but it's also my jam. So either it's going to work or it's not, or people are going to say stuff. And and that comes with all the self-confidence and, all the millions other lessons. And we're just going to have lots of chats, I guess.
I know, go through each thing.
Other pieces. But I think this is a really great place to start. Like we're saying, is like that, gathering that, that conversation within yourself and learning to trust it and learning to know how to get there, and knowing that, yes, you're going to feel all the other feelings on the other side. And when you get excited to do your magic, right, there's also going to be all those other feelings, and knowing that they're feelings, right, and letting them also sit within your body and feel them, and decide if it's from your head or your heart or your body. And of course, the gift of working with Jaime or working with us together is like, we can help you and support you in like, okay, just a feeling, let's go in, let's feel it, let's learn everything we can, right? And just having that support to get good at this. And then like, okay, now you have the feeling, now go talk to Jaime. What are you going to do with all that, right? And now that you've uncovered all this, what are you going to do? And then she's just like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, let's figure it out. Let's get your support there. And I just think it has such a good rhythm to it of like letting you really stay in your knowingness, and really letting that evolve within you, and letting that grow, and letting your creativity and your knowingness support you in your life in so many ways, which it will do once you find it. It won't only show up at work, it'll show up everywhere, because that's what happens. And I think it's been an amazing gift for me. And I feel like we both feel like we want to give the gift to anyone and everyone that wants to, because that's how you change the quality of your life.
Yeah. And just to remove the pain, I do a lot of work around burnout, and so much of burnout is really just ignoring the signals in your body, and then just moving forward, trying to keep your head down and push forward. And like, honestly, why, when you have a choice to live life however you want to live it, why would you choose pain? And not that, and I don't want to sound like everyone has every choice available to them, but, one of my favorite examples, which I think I talk about a lot, is Nelson Mandela, who was put in jail for standing up for his beliefs. And he was in jail for 20 years and nothing changed, right? So even if you don't have control over your circumstances, even if you're in a situation that should make you bitter and angry and feel like the world is against you, you could still come out of that situation and become the president of South Africa and end apartheid. It's still possible to have that kind of transformation, even if you don't have the perfect situation, like the perfect curated opportunities and privilege. You still get to decide how you deal with those circumstances and how you show up, and just not to ignore all of the messages and all of the opportunities to learn from your situation and to try to make the best of it. So I think for the two of us, it's like, we know that when you start to tap into your magic, it feels a certain way and it feels really good. And because I think we've both been in and out of that painful place, that painful burnout, we know how awful that feels and how hard it is to get out of it on your own. Also, that it does require support and people recognizing something about you that maybe you don't see, and helping just practice and turn that stuff on. And so I just, like I said, I've kind of lived this life of following my intuition, but I never knew what I was doing. I never it didn't feel like I was following anything. It felt like I was scatterbrained and doing things that nobody else would do and making decisions that seemed really illogical. But I think getting this sort of vocabulary and understanding that, like, actually tuning into my body is where I should be making my decisions from, gave me like a new permission and sort of a new awareness of like, oh no, I'm not scatterbrained. I'm not making illogical decisions. I'm applying this technique. I just didn't realize that I was applying it. And so I never believed in it. I just beat myself up after I made those decisions because I thought that it was coming from an irresponsible, immature place. But there's a lot of power in making decisions from this place.
Yeah. And it's really grounding, really. So it actually, the more you practice it, and the more you take ownership of it, and the more that you experience it, the more settled you feel in it. And you don't feel flighty and you don't feel irresponsible. You feel like this is my truth and it's solid. And at first, everything that you do that's new seems scary and, you judge it and whatnot. But the more you do it, the more you're like, yeah, it's really clear
Yeah.
because it's your truth.
Yes. And you build confidence from that place. You build, the more you have to tell people no, and the more you have to try to curate and cultivate this feeling and make decisions in, what you choose to take on, you just start to develop more confidence in it and confidence in yourself of like, no, I'm allowed to say no, because I know what happens if I show up in, resentment or anger, or show up in all these different ways around something that I knew I didn't want to do in the first place, that my gut was telling me not to do it, but I did it. And then it created all this other pain and, all these other feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a fun maybe takeaway to try on. So looking for those places where you feel that same sensation that you did when you were thinking about magic. So to kind of look for those like in your life and in your day. And I think another one that I think is a really fun practice is, now that you have that and you've figured out what those things are, start to really develop some words around the things that bring you joy and that are magical, and start talking about them. and using them in your day, and using them at work where you're like, oh yeah, no, I do that. This is what I do. Right. And so that you start to have a lens where you're like, this is what I want to see it through this. I want to see it through my magic when I do my magic. And so bringing it into your brain in the front and like really talking about it is for you, not for others, really, about like, yeah, no, I wanted to do that. I want to do it this way. I want it to feel like this. And so kind of finding the words that you can use, even if it's like with your friends, you're like, you know what I learned about myself? And it's like the more you can talk about it, the more that you can make that more comfortable, you can start really like living into it and bringing it into your awareness.
Yeah.
So try that on, see what you think.
I love that. I love that too, because it's also a way to sort of show other people that, like, give them permission to talk about what they've figured out or what they're learning or how they're showing up. I love that. Yeah.
Conversation.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you everyone for coming to this class about finding your magic. I hope you got something from this and have some tools that you can take forward, and especially this takeaway from Tracy. And we'll follow up with you afterwards with a recording of the session and ways that you can potentially work with us, because we're doing a combined coaching program so that you get some of the unwinding and some of the figuring out what to do next with the magic that you find from the unwinding. So we'll reach out to you with information about that. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Email us, together or separate. We'll give you both our email addresses. Any questions, we're available. We love to hear what your experience was, what worked, what didn't, what made sense, if you have any questions, we're here and we're open to all of that. So thank you also from me also for showing up and sharing your time and your energy with us.
Yeah, great. And have a good day, morning, evening.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.